What if the secret to surviving a move abroad isn't learning the language, making friends, or even finding a job, but something far smaller, far quieter, and almost embarrassingly simple? Today, I want to talk about micro anchors and why they might be the most underrated tool for protecting your mental health when everything around you feels unfamiliar. Let me paint you a picture. You wake up in a new city. Maybe you moved for work, for love, for adventure, or maybe just because you needed a change. The first few days feel electric. Everything is new, everything is interesting, and the novelty carries you. But then, around week 2 or 3, something shifts. The excitement starts to thin out. You realize you don't know where to buy the specific kind of coffee you actually like. You don't have a route you walk without thinking. You don't have that one spot where the staff kind of know your face. And suddenly, without those small invisible threads, you feel completely unmoored. That feeling has a name, and today we are going to dismantle it piece by piece. Micro anchors are exactly what they sound like. They are tiny, repeatable rituals embedded into your day that create a psychological sense of belonging and predictability. Not grand gestures, not dramatic reinventions of your lifestyle. Just small, consistent touchpoints that signal to your nervous system that you are home, even when you technically are not yet. And the research on this is fascinating because it reveals how deeply human beings are wired for routine, not out of laziness or fear, but out of genuine neurological necessity. Here is something your brain is doing constantly without your permission. It is scanning your environment for signals of safety. When you are in a familiar environment, your brain doesn't have to work very hard. It recognizes patterns, it predicts outcomes, and it conserves energy. But when you are in a new place, every single sensory input is being evaluated. Where is the nearest exit? Is this neighborhood safe? What are the social norms here? That cognitive load is exhausting. And over time, it contributes to something called decision fatigue and low-grade chronic stress. Micro-anchors are the antidote because they create islands of familiarity inside an ocean of the unknown. So let's talk about the first and arguably most powerful micro-anchor you can build anywhere in the world: finding your coffee shop. Now, I am not saying this works only if you drink coffee. The point is finding one place, ideally a cafe or a small local spot, that becomes yours. You go at roughly the same time, you order roughly the same thing, you sit in roughly the same area. Within a surprisingly short time, the staff start to recognize you. Maybe they nod. Maybe they start making your order before you finish asking. Maybe they comment on the weather. These are micro moments of social recognition, and they are extraordinarily powerful for mental health. Social recognition activates reward pathways in the brain. It tells you that you exist in this place, that you are not invisible, that you belong here in some small but real way. When you are living abroad or navigating any major life transition, invisibility is one of the most quietly devastating experiences. You come from a place where people knew you, where you had context, history, reputation, relationships. And suddenly, you are a stranger everywhere you go. Finding your coffee shop begins to repair that. It is your first micro-anchor, and it costs almost nothing except consistency. The second micro-anchor is a grocery routine. And yes, I mean this literally and specifically. Pick one grocery store. Learn its layout. Go on the same day or days each week. This sounds aggressively mundane, and that is exactly why it works. Grocery shopping in a new country or even a new city can be genuinely overwhelming. Different products, different brands, different organizational systems, sometimes a different language on every label. When you are already running low on mental bandwidth, navigating a massive, unfamiliar supermarket is the kind of thing that can tip you from manageable stress into genuine despair. But when you know the store, when you know where the pasta lives and which checkout line moves fastest, That small space becomes a source of competence. And competence feels like confidence. Competence feels like control. And in a life transition where control feels scarce, this matters enormously. There is also something deeply grounding about the ritual of feeding yourself well. Cooking a familiar meal in a new kitchen using ingredients you found yourself is one of the most quietly triumphant experiences available to a person rebuilding their life in a new place. Your grocery routine makes that possible consistently, not just occasionally. The third micro-anchor is your walking route. This one operates on a slightly different level than the first two because it combines physical movement, spatial familiarity, and sensory repetition in a way that is uniquely therapeutic. When you walk the same route repeatedly, something remarkable happens. You stop navigating and start noticing. You begin to see the garden that changes with the seasons. You learn which bakery puts fresh bread out at 7 in the morning. You recognize the dog that always barks from the third-floor window. The street stops being infrastructure and starts being a neighborhood, and you stop being a tourist and start being a resident. This transition in identity is not trivial. It is central to psychological well-being. Walking also has its own neurological benefits that compound everything we have already discussed. Regular walking reduces cortisol, supports serotonin production, and gives your brain the chance to process experiences in a low-stimulation environment. When you combine those benefits with a route that is becoming genuinely familiar, you get something close to a moving meditation. A daily reset that costs you nothing except 30 minutes and a decent pair of shoes. Now here is where I want to bring all three of these together and explain why the combination matters more than any single piece. Micro-anchors work through repetition and layering. One anchor gives you one island. 3 anchors give you a network. And a network starts to feel like a life. Your morning coffee shop gives you a social touchpoint. Your grocery routine gives you domestic competence and nourishment. Your walking route gives you spatial belonging and physical well-being. Together, they create a daily structure that holds you without constraining you, that provides comfort without requiring you to sacrifice the spontaneity and adventure that made you want to move in the first place. And here is the piece of advanced psychology that I think makes this framework genuinely life-changing, rather than just sensible advice. The act of deliberately creating micro-anchors shifts you from a passive participant in your own life to an active architect of it. When you are struggling with a major transition, it is terrifyingly easy to fall into a posture of waiting. Waiting to feel better, waiting to make friends, waiting for life to start feeling normal again. Micro-anchors break that paralysis because they give you something to do right now, today, with 0 prerequisites. You do not need to speak the language fluently. You do not need to have money or connections or confidence. You just need to show up to the same place twice, and then again, and then again. The consistency itself becomes the point. The showing up becomes the act of choosing to belong before belonging feels natural. And somewhere along the way, without you quite noticing when it happened, it starts to feel natural. The coffee shop feels like your coffee shop. The walk feels like your walk. The grocery store feels like your grocery store. And your new city, this place that once felt like a beautiful but indifferent stranger, starts to feel just a little bit like home. Start small. Start specific. Start tomorrow morning. Pick one anchor, commit to it for 2 weeks, and pay attention to how you feel. Because I promise you, the shift will come, and it will feel enormous even though it started from something that seemed almost embarrassingly small.